Hey class, it's James McCoy, back again for one last briefing with all of you. Um, and hopefully, I want to teach you something that's been close to my heart for quite a while during my learning as a leader. And honestly, through pretty much every aspect of my life. It's the four stages of learning. Right now, quite a while ago, I've learned that abstraction is much more difficult than association. So to help you guys out, and hopefully for you to better understand what I'm talking about, I'd like to introduce a concept that we have talked about in class. And I want to tie that into four stages of team development. Now, I believe that both of these personal learning stages and the four stages of team development, I think they go hand in hand. I really do. So without further ado, I hope to teach you a little bit about something that we didn't talk about in class and tie it into something we did talk about for a little substance and a little bit of grounding that hopefully makes a difference for you. So in the first stage of team development, we talked about the forming stage. Right? Now, this one, the leader, hopefully you're instrumental in this because this team probably has a collective goal, right? Something that they're working towards. Right? It's the reason the team was formed in the beginning. But they don't have any guidance. They don't have any ground rules. They don't have any structure. And people don't tend to function very well with no structure. And it takes some very high-performing individuals to be efficient, and you as the leader, you really have to set that structure from the beginning in this forming stage. Nobody really knows anybody. Expectations are high, but they don't really know if it's going to pan out and move along, or if it's just going to kind of fizzle out and die, and then they're going to have to find another team. Right, so to tie that into personal learning, it's what's called unconscious incompetence is the first stage. Now, psychologists have come up with this theory called the Dunning-Kruger effect. This Dunning-Kruger effect basically states that people tend to over-exaggerate their abilities in certain areas simply because they don't know any better. Basically, they don't realize how incapable they are in this particular situation. So they just assume that they're good at it. Right? And I'm sure you can see that this is kind of a big deal. If you don't realize that you're not good at a particular skill, at a particular aspect, then you're probably not going to be very good, and it's not going to end up well for you. So as a leader, you create this structure. You create job details and descriptions and roles. But typically, this leads into the storming stage of team development. We talked about this in class. It's dangerous. Right? It's necessary for the team to move forward and to get to a high-performance team, but it's dangerous because this is where teams either thrive or fail. It's right here. It's kind of the crux of everything. So you as the leader tend to take an approach where you have to talk to your team. You have to confront it. And typically this is done by honestly just asking questions, playing devil's advocate. Right? This team doesn't work well together because different beliefs, different backgrounds, different ways of solving these problems, they probably didn't all grow up the same way. All these people probably didn't solve all their issues the same way. And so when you have multiple people trying to solve the same problem in various ways, there's disagreements. And maybe even the team starts looking back at you as the leader and saying, hey, you didn't do a good job. You didn't put the right people in the right spots, so you're at fault for this. And this is where this second stage of personal learning comes in. It's called conscious incompetence. AA has a term for this. It's called acceptance. Right? When you consciously realize that you are incompetent at something, you're accepting the fact that you're not good at it. maybe somebody else is better at it than you are, and that maybe you should lean on them when you need to, rather than trying to take on all the problems yourself. So this conscious incompetence, very quickly, once the team, on average, is in this conscious incompetence stage, and they've accepted the fact that various people have various strengths and various weaknesses, the team typically immediately starts going into the norming stage. Now, this norming stage is wonderful. Right, it's a breath of fresh air after storming, after arguing, all this bickering, because the team starts to come together. The team starts to function towards the goal that it was meant to function towards, which is great, right? Obviously, that's the end goal that we want. That's why we built this team in the beginning anyway, because we wanted it to help solve a problem. However, these incompetencies from the individual people required a great amount of effort to overcome. Right? And that's where this third stage of personal development and personal learning comes from. And it's called conscious competence. Think about it like this. If you realize that every time you talk to somebody, you tend to look away from them. You don't look them in the eye. You tend to look at the wall or find any excuse that you can to look away. It becomes very difficult for you to actually look somebody in the eye. However, when you start going into kind of more of a corporate setting, it starts to become paramount. Like those clients that you're trying to sell something to. If they think you're fishy because you won't look them in the eye, it's going to take away from your value. Whether or not you're a good salesman, whether or not you're selling a product that's literally going to help them, it doesn't really matter because you're not looking them in the eye. So you know you have to overcome this particular aspect of yourself. And so you have to consciously put effort towards speaking and looking someone in the eye at the same time. It takes effort, right? And it's so difficult because it's not your default. You have to consciously put effort towards looking someone in the eye and talking to them every single time. However, once you start doing that over and over and over again, it starts to become habit. And that habit, doing these things habitually, pushes the team collectively into the performing stage, and it pushes you as an individual into the unconscious competence stage. This unconscious competence is what you want, right? You've worked so hard at this particular skill in your life that you really want it to flourish, right? You don't want to have to put effort towards it every single time you do something. You just want to be good at it. Right, so unconsciously competent at looking somebody in the eye and talking to them is something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. Right? It's something that will always be there with you. And that's hopefully what this team starts doing in the performing stage. They don't have to consciously think about who's better at one task than them so they can delegate to that person, or maybe you're the stronger one and so you're trying to get other people to come to you to help. That's all part of that conscious competence. That's them trying to figure everything out themselves. But once you unconsciously competently do something, it's just habit. That's the default for whatever behavior that you're particularly learning in. And that's hopefully the end goal of your team. So to recap really quick, right? First you go through unconsciously incompetent. Then you go into the second phase of conscious competence, that acceptance that what you're doing needs work on. Then you go into the third stage, which is conscious competence. And that conscious competence is you consciously putting effort towards making yourself better. And hopefully after doing that over and over and over again, you land in that fourth stage of unconscious competence. That becomes your new default. And the good thing is, that lasts for the rest of your life. So hopefully you learned something again today. My name's James, and I wanted to share with you the 4 stages of learning. I hope it